I just want to welcome you all here this morning. Navigating Digital Transformation Supports to Your Business. So we're going to have some very interesting presentations from Mike Conroy, the European Digital Innovation Fund, some case studies, which I think is always a great way to find out how well the programme is working. We also have my colleague Jackie Fitzgerald from Enterprise Ireland to talk about the Disruptive Technologies Innovation Fund. And then we have Brenda Hegarty, head of Leo, to talk about the Enterprise Europe Network and how Leo can support digital transition. And then we will have Katrina Strain will close the morning. So I just want to wish you all a very good morning, and we'll have loads of time for Q&A afterwards. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Ryan. Thank you.
Okay, great. Good morning, everybody. Any faces in the room? So just a brief introduction before we're putting this up. My name is Mike Conroy. This program has been up running for over a year and a bit. I kind of joined, supposed to an ATU, but I'll speak more generally about how it fits into the wider ecosystem now, as well as sports, and also talk about the national picture. And then I'm going on to talk a little bit about some of what we've been enjoying over last year. A lot of this is to do with flexibility, kind of work with companies and, see what issues, probably values. And then I'll go to some example case studies, right? So we're trying to refresh still at the moment, so certainly challenging in anything. My own background is probably more in the multinational software tech industries ever, mostly in this region. I live in Galway. This program is outside of the NWRA region, generally speaking, but it can be like any company or entity, so nationally, conjunction with anybody else. And we've learned some things with it, kind of it's like a new construct. So, and certainly jump in with questions, because I tend to sometimes put up too much complexity, so it's not understand, or that's not the way it really works.
Excuse me, Mike, can you hear me? It's Jose here. For the presenters, it would be better if you can present from closer to the laptop, because the sound is better if you are closer to the laptop. Thank you very much.
Yeah, apologies. Can you hear me better now?
It's much better for the ones attending online. Thank you, Mike.
Apologies to people online. I omitted a minute there that we had a virtual audience. So, so the European Digital Innovation Hubs are a sort of European Digital Europe initiative going back probably 3 or 4 years. They were launched across Europe, 50% funded by Digital Europe, 50% by the national governments. They worked their way through to be, in the case of Ireland, 4 digital innovation hubs being our programs. It's probably one way to look at them. As much program as a hub in a physical sense. And so they kind of came into place in 2023. Largely speaking, it's probably late 2023 before things sort of wrap up and so actually work with some companies, right? Some of the names might be familiar to you. CEDAR is a sort of national technology centre. It's actually funded by Enterprise Ireland, very active with lots of research and innovation programs. And it is an EDIH in the sense that it's got a mechanism. Now, I'll talk about what the EDIH, how it works in terms of the 4 types of services, which is, I think, all complementary to maybe some of the core technology centre work. You've got Factory Exchange, which is some of you may be familiar with, Irish Manufacturing Research, which is another large technology centre with a facility in Mullingar and elsewhere. And again, it's kind of consortium of partners in there, like Technology University of Shannon, KPMG, Future, and a range of other companies. I won't go into all of them. Data to Sustain is largely in the west-northwest, with a sort of a broad reach if there's applicability. And I'm talking about the consortium. And Entire is again, largely south-southwest, and it's kind of hosted out of UCC, Kendall, Southeast University, MTU, etc. Right? So you can see there's a strong kind of HEI, National Research Technology Gateway sort of background, but there's also private participants in some of the consortium. And so at a high level, the goals are, and this is just part of the ecosystem. So obviously that first statement is only part of the many other things that Enterprise Ireland, Leo, and many other agencies and bodies sort of operate in. So it's to support operations, adopt digital technologies, from the basics to artificial intelligence, or to generally, from a software and engineering perspective, be more competitive. It's 100%, they're 100% funded services, so it's not a co-fund in terms of technology. It's basically 100% funded, but the service must be passed on to the company as a de minimis state aid. So in other words, if you are doing some type of innovation project and it's of a value of 50,000, then it's an estate agency, the company's balance is 300,000.
So how do you 100% innovation? So if the company has some innovation it wants to do, then basically you will, you describe it and apply for this. And,
I'll talk about the process
okay.
a little bit. We generally try to stay in touch with the agencies. So we don't sort of just do something from a technology perspective, but it's largely somewhat guided there. But other than that, you can independently have a meeting, decide as a matching of service, or we can develop something, and we can develop a statement of work, and it can be just to get going, relatively small amount to grow. So the approvals, it's really within the consortium. There's no higher agency power that you have to go to, as long as you follow the rules. So it's quick. It's really can match up, right? Does that help?
Yeah.
We'll talk about that, right? I guess the proof is in the pudding, and everybody has different experiences. I think one of the challenges, I think, in the RDI, I use the word research innovation, there's so many national centres, there's so many national institutions, there's so many research programmes. So one of the goals of the EDIH is to sort of act a little bit more as a broker in as much as that's possible. So if I'm working with the technology gateway in Donegal, to give you an example of a company at the moment, but they need a lot of help with medical software, so I can go out to maybe Water and Dundalk, bring those guys in, fund them, part of the program quickly. So you can kind of get a multidisciplinary group together rather than, there's an innovation voucher for that group, and that's the group you work with. So it's a bit more flexible to move the funding around if you don't have to reapply it. So one-stop shop's obviously kind of a strong term, and that's largely an agency sort of role, but I think as much as that's important. And in as much as possible, I'm not saying this is always the case, interlock with an agency, right? So if I'm in a company, or we meet a company, and you say, where are you in the journey? Or we're looking to be, we've just got a startup grant or HPSU. How would our work complement in that road? And if we talk to a Westvic or Enterprise Ireland or Leo, it will be a complementary to their journey. That doesn't have to be always the case. And it can be independent, but generally speaking, it's good to do that. Otherwise, it might get just abandoned. So that's kind of the backdrop, just the principles. The other thing that's probably a little different in terms of construct is there's 4 things. One is test for invest, which is kind of classic innovation projects. These are not meant to be deep research activities. They're meant to be over a 1, 2, 3, 5 month period maximum. You invest in innovation. So not like what you would achieve with the larger scale or multiple maybe versions of an innovation voucher, almost that way. There is a budget assignment to just making things come together. So if I'm in the, I'm in environmental planning or I don't know, renewal for wind farm, and but there's technologists around that are applicable over here, but they don't really know that domain. Anything that brings a domain together to be more effective is good. So we're kind of doing that across a few things. Skills and capacity is about, it's not overlaying. And this has been challenging because there's so many different things out there, but there's really like workshopping in particular areas. We do a lot. I'll give you some examples, but clearly you have to fit that into all the other supports that are there through the HEI network and many other sort of funding mechanisms of skills and training. And then we do work with people like Westvic who provide their own support service. So Westvic do help to find investment, sort of navigate funding landscape, run some business models, that type of stuff. So Westwick, as an example, has a data sustained budget where they can kind of work with companies that's complementary to the technology roadmap. But that would be in addition to what they might do, say, say under the direction of EI around HPSU. Does that make sense? And then I've given you the examples there. Typically, the projects can be anything from 10K to 50, 60K. It would be unusual to go bigger, but we have done projects of up to 100K spread across multiple services. Typically would be you need some help with user experience, you need some help with the business model, you need some help with something else, so it's complementary. And from a company's perspective, it's meant to be focused on the SMEs, largely up to 250, but companies up to 3,000 employees globally are eligible, as are CLGs, community groups, and public sector, but there's a limit on the funds that it shouldn't go above, like 20-25% non-enterprise. Okay, so data sustain is an amalgamation of sort of a lot of the organizations in this region, Atlantic University and University Galway, but they're probably the wrong logos. Probably the right logos are the technology centres. the research centres like Insight, the maybe healthcare clusters. So it's more the industry-facing expertise that might sit within those institutions, like the National High Performance Computing Centre, for example. So it's really what sits underneath those that's applicable. So we're here today, and obviously the Wiser Technology Gateway are in this building down the way, and they're one of the biggest consumers and users of the fund. So they're working with lots of companies in this region and more broadly to run projects with. So they would be a big partner. And as would be, for example, the Insight Research Centre, which is the National AI Centre, or the Galway, they have an applying team that we can use as well. And my role is really, we have myself, a couple of business development / technical consultant people, and then we've got hard engineers who sit within those opportunities, and I kind of go between getting people internally to develop services that might be applicable to finding companies that match them up, and then just making sure we stay honest in terms of the de minimis, the state aid, and talking about agencies. So that's the general principle. There's no real limit on the, obviously it's not like going to move the mountain on each of these areas, but there's no restriction in terms of, it can be tourism, can be retail. We have a nice project with, just to mention a company, because it was a case study, Carolyn retail stores in this region, across kind of changing how they look at things, changing how the security works, changing how they monitor their stuff. So that's a very stuff that an agency typically wouldn't get at, as an example. So it can be broad, and typically what's on the bottom are typically the type of technologies, but obviously we're going to be selective. Ideally, when you look at the 4 EDIHs working together, we should be able to sort of intersect with different sectors. Again, it's part of the wider ecosystem. So going back to where does it fit? It fits under, from an Enterprise Ireland perspective, it fits under the RDI umbrella, largely speaking. I think this is said about an ODI chart, but it's technology centres and gateways and all sort of other opportunities in there. And that's where the EDIHs, and they're not necessarily a separate entity saying, okay, another bunch of operations people, it's a fund that sits on top across it. Okay. And obviously it's quite aware of, like we were doing some work with Fáilte Ireland, digital that delivers, with companies who are sort of on that path. You're obviously meet companies who are on grow digital type paths and all that type of stuff. So these are quite interesting numbers, but they kind of give you, so over the last year, so we kind of really started the first companies in January, February, and we're refreshing the case studies, but we've engaged 240 companies. What that means, they've registered, we've had a meeting, we sort of figured out is that relevant, not relevant, right? We may have done a digital maturity assessment, done some signposting. Signposting is often not me doing signposting, it's going back to the consortium. I really should have emphasised on the consortium here, just to kind of show things. So the data sustain consortium is a little bit different. So Chris O'Malley is the sort of lead on the ATU, head of research in University College Galway. Budros, Sean O'Cushtola, who's part of Tommaso Sheecon's group. John Brennan's on the steering committee. John McGee, who's the chair of the Leo Network, is head of the steering committee. And then Jerry Dial and Ian Brannigan are the people in those that sit on the steering committee and meet monthly. Right? So that's kind of the way it works. So we engage 240 companies. Now that can be quite light touch, but let's say they're on our CRM system and had a conversation. This is what we sort of figured out. We have a role or not a role. And then that's resulted in 170 projects or services. And that could be like cybersecurity consultancy for a relatively small amount, or it could be, a kind of a deep innovation project that might run for 6 months. And some of those are not completed. That's the pipeline, but we've signed those up, as it were, 210 unique companies. And we calculate the current de minimis pass-through is about 2 million in terms of pass, and then there's about another 500 in the pipeline. And then you're also allowed to put in open access, which is effectively if you run an event or get into something that's a broad use to lots of companies, then it's open access. That's not de minimis as long as it seems to be so. We've run specific events, industry events, the National AI event, etc. But often it's really trying to augment, exist, and partner with others. So how this services, so if you go to the website, there's all these services, and you start picking, or if you go onto the CEDAR website, you get a lot of services, or you go onto the entire website, and you go onto the Back Exchange website. We are refreshing this a bit as we found that what we're doing has overtaken some of the way we talk about some of the services. So we're going through a refresh of this, but if you go on there right now, that's what you get. It gives you some example of the type of services. And ideally what happens is you meet a company, you say, oh, we've got this AI service that has this sort of price range. Let's have a meeting. And then you sort of get to a service statement of work, which is typically a couple of pages or deeper, obviously, if you need to go there. And then you basically go through their de minimis check with the agency or with themselves. And you say it's going to cost this and you can afford it, decide a de minimis form, and you get going. And it's really mostly determined by agreeing what the company needs to do and how we the people to do it. There's no other approval mechanism. And that it's a general priority for everything else. So if you go into the websites, you get this type of write-up, right? We are refreshing these. So what I say is, when you sort of come and talk to a company, so typically the ideal path, existing types of expertise or services, I've got some person who does analytics in the healthcare space, it's of relevance, you follow that path on the left, but often you meet a company and say, well, we don't know anything really that fits well, but there's some expertise we're aware of across the organization in tourism. And sometimes it's often the technologists plus the domain experts that we kind of put together. So you're kind of in this path and you kind of then are basically, developing a service, and then if that's repeatable, you put it on the website. But the outcomes are typically a maturity assessment, which can be kind of relatively lightweight, or it can be deep, and it's kind of the conversation gets into what's really in the law, and then you dive into that. But that's not unlike other maturity assessments, but it's a prerequisite. You end up with a 2 or 3 page statement of work, which we sign off. The only people who sign it are me, the company, and the people who do the work, and then we just have somebody on behalf of you as the funding authority to sign them. But they, so that they sign 170 agreements, and then there's a de minimis form, which is the magic one that has to have the history of the company. That has to be asked early. And you often find companies don't understand that. They actually sometimes they think they've spent too much and they say it's a problem. And when they actually go look at in terms of what is the issue, it turns out to be a smaller number, or the window has changed. And when they look at how they could spend this a bit more, and they can say, okay, we can spend some de minimis in this window, knowing that, that's that, and then we're going after different funding with the agency or whatever. So they're the 3 things you end up with. Every company tends to have those. So the work could be anything in there. This is probably not a complete list, but you can see you can go from feasibility studies to tech requirements documents to just help me build a tech journey map that I could go execute externally. We do a lot of work with the guys here in Donegal around user experience. So people who just have, I need to put an administrator. I need to create an app around my business that it's not like it's just a simple app, but some sort of administration control. So often just kind of some of that type of that's a consultancy, and so creating prototypes can be just as a really example of a really popular service. But you can you get an idea of some of the ideas. So then if you kind of go, so that's what we've been busy doing. That's really only over the last maybe 12 months, 15 months now. These are some case studies I'm going to run through. They are a little bit dated because they kind of go back to November. So they don't necessarily reflect case studies that are 100% completed. Sometimes they're work in progress, and they've all progressed. And there's also some about another 10 or 15 we're planning to add, which we're kind of working through. Around events, this is something we kind of try to team where it's possible. We've run, for example, just a sports technology event, which would be a combination sports technology Ireland, sports technology expertise within that, let's say, HU University, and then a bunch of companies. Right? And that will just facilitate that happening. Some of that's financial, some is just kind of helping to come that together. It's rarely just me making that happen. It's usually people who sort of are driving to want to make something happen. We did a significant national AI meeting, which the minister spoke at, but that was in conjunction with Enterprise Ireland and Tech Ireland, and that looks like it'll happen again this year. But it gives you kind of a flavour of some of the things. Some are other quite specific. So type of stuff. This is just examples of the journey. So I'll just go through a few just to give you an example. And some of these are absolutely the partners. I'm not necessarily doing the heavy lifting. In this, there's a number of cases where wiser team here are working with them. We're working with people in Galway. We're working with people at the University in Galway. We're working with people in research centres. We're pulling an IMR, maybe our CEDAR to help with something, that type of stuff. So it can be quite flexible. We don't kind of go into who's behind the scene here. Like I said, it's not a dedicated data sustained team. It's more a leadership team. And so this is a company that's has a biodigester, basically, has a lot of, it's already had come through some supports historically. And so what these charts are all the same, and I'm not going to step through them, and I can circulate them afterwards. I'll get them out to this audience with a refresh. So it just basically says, what was their challenge? What type of services they use, and what was their journey? What was their client journey? So you can kind of see, where they were at with how we engaged them using a digital maturity model, understanding they were already working perhaps through an innovation voucher. They needed some help with user experience to sort of build what the experience would look like. And then they needed that prototype, and it was back and forth with their customer base. And we did that twice. Sometimes companies saying, yeah, work with us now. They'd leave us alone for 3 months because we need to go and test this thing. And then let's come back later, right? Where some of the other funding mechanisms can be start here, finish here, the company's journey can be, it changes, right? There's first company I worked with was a company called BioWave, and they do game controllers. So it's a kind of technology company. And they really needed help with their strategy and who their clients and personas of users were and how they would build an experience for the community. But then, that went so far, and then said, stop. We're going on the road for 3 months. We're going to conferences. We're going to talk to clients. We'll use this prototype. We'll come back to you in 3 months' time. So we stop working with them, and then we come back 3 months later when they're ready. So that's a bit of flexibility that sometimes isn't there in, let's say, more structured funding processes. So if we, again, resource dependent. That's examples of retail stores. These are, like I said, they're quite different. I mean, this is not necessarily going to shift the needle in terms of exports or everything, but if the objective is to help companies to evolve their business and be more competitive, then this is an example around their security systems, around their sort of monitoring, and around a few other aspects of it. So this is a very simple example. We sat with the company for 2-hour workshop, right people in the room, we can do this, this, and this, make a decision. Let's do this first to make sure we can work together. That's signed off, and then, okay, let's do a project that's going to run for 3 or 4 months.
Oh, sorry, what was the customer in that?
Who was the customer?
Yeah.
It's a retail forecourt chain.
A retail chain.
That's a forecourt chain.
Like
Kernan. Like Kernan is an example.
For example.
As an example. As an example.
Oh, I see. Yeah. You don't say exactly which one.
No, I mean, I think it's fine. We would have presented slides for the people in the room, but until you've gone through the official, which is fine. So I wouldn't say their name unless we were out in another public environment where we shared it and they were in the room. And these are interventions that are helping them on their bigger journey. It's not their only thing they're doing.
Mike, sorry, can I ask you how would that work then? If they would come to something like this, say the MD of that particular group, that chain of forecourt stations, they would come to something like this and then approach you afterwards and say, what can you do for us? Is it a new partner that would really think is relevant? Or?
Yeah, I wish it was, you'd like to think it was like this massive database and everybody is like, where you're sort of prioritizing them all. But, there's been referrals on from Enterprise Ireland, there's referrals from Leo's, there's people who might be working already through the university and gateways. Who would ask?
Be clients of ours necessarily.
Not necessarily, no. Not necessarily.
So that's what I'm saying. How do the people that are not client of us, or Leo, or the Udros, or Westbecker, how do they kind of get to?
Well, a lot of it's, I guess you're kind of out there.
Word of mouth.
Yeah, a bit of word of mouth, right? I mean, you have to, like this learnings, to be frank, like we were struggling, and I think you look at a lot of the Leo cohorts. So those companies who are in the journeys perhaps to early stage, and then they're perhaps going through some sort of startup journey and they're potential enterprise, bigger client. So they're on that journey, so that fits fairly well because they're very clear. But then there's a lot of Leo clients we just need some interventions, and often it's I need to make sense of all my Excel sheets. And sometimes there isn't very good fits in this consortium for those type of customers. So we went through an exercise with Leo's where we basically, we took their fund and basically subcontracted to a panel of digital consultants to go and meet a range of companies. So they said, here's our top 15, 20 or 30 companies we want to talk to. Mm-hmm. So rather than me going out and not being able to maybe being able to articulate or get a really good fit, in that situation, we had subcontractors who were essentially part of the network, who were essentially doing a combination of classic digital for business type of engagement plus this. And they were sufficiently to say, okay, that could be a fit for a kind of a EDIH. Now, if I'm honest, a subset of those companies became on this journey, as an example, but a lot of the companies really needed different types of interventions. They needed help with their, somebody to come in and at a security level, lock down their controls and give them some really practical on the ground work. So, you know, given the heritage of the EDIH, it's not going to be always a fit by a long shot, right? And so to answer your question, it is like Udaros is a really quite a good example, believe it or not. Like I went to Belmullet and a few other GTECs, and we had a kind of a group like this, and then just some one-on-ones. And then I go so far, and then perhaps my colleague Stephen Seawright, who were also working with a consultant who would be brought in under Udaros, who were kind of digital consultants with a manufacturing fair. So there's about 10 projects that have come out of that, who range from experience centers to, you know, manufacturers of sea salt to, you know, all sort of companies that have a range of activities, and they needed help with, you know, and sometimes it's not just the tech, they needed help with their, you know, or they need, you know, some consultancy on what I could do here with wastewater. Or there's an animal health group over here, there's a regulation issue that they need to sort of think about. So Udaros has been a good example because they have quite a few. Yeah. So they often wouldn't get very much visibility, I think, into the RDI world. So there's been quite a few interesting companies there, and they're not really reflected here yet. We're sort of just gone through updating. Okay. I don't know if that helps a bit.
Yeah.
So this is you know, I'm gonna at the time. So that's retail stores. Probably not the one to pick. That's probably not the one to remember, to be honest, right? But it's just an example. This is kind of a food platform. This is a software company that's basically a food platform. There's a food platform for recipes in production. They work with people like multiples and food producers. And so they needed three things. They needed help with their experience. How should I present the data? They needed help with some, you know, how they talk about AI and how they could apply it to the data they're collecting. But also they needed help with, I needed to get people who could help them with how to represent carbon footprint in their software. You know, I've got a recipe, what's the carbon footprint of it? Prediction. And so we would have brought in researchers in ATU who had a lot of the EU network, who knew who could get to Columbia and Kerry and say, how are you looking at this? And then bring that to somebody. So it wasn't just here's a piece of software. It's basically here's how you should represent this based on research to back it up. So that can be helpful. This is a lifestyle company, you're probably aware of them. They're sort of in the animal, you know, sort of weighing an animal and looking at their progress on a daily basis. So this is where we're just putting some computer vision to see if we could replicate, let's say, the trained eye of somebody who kind of measures the progress of an animal in terms of their quality before they kind of finish them out feed perspective. But it's a video analysis project. This is a software company. Again, mostly around user experience. This is sort of a company that was mostly had an idea around how to create a planning system for offshore renewables and how they would do nature restoration. So this is really how do you build a cloud platform, and how do I get a prototype to the point where I can put it in front of investors and convince them, you know, that I've got a path. So they got a research paper out of that. They got into some various publications, and they're on the circuit now, basically trying to go to the next level. And then we connect them with iCheck, who are part of Factory Exchange, which is the high performance computing group, to take them to the next level. So that's kind of where the journey they're on. That's an early stage company. This is a software project management company, mostly AI stuff. We were doing a lot of cybersecurity. We're not as well resourced as we should be. We're trying to some people got rediverted into other national program delivery, so it's not as strong as we thought we would be. We're doing various things in healthcare operations. Some of it's with HSE, some of it's with some small companies. That's going to grow. We're doing some stuff in the construction space. We're working with FutureCast out in Manor Hamilton. Those three projects there, one is about how to build a lean maturity assessment around construction, one's around the application of creating a sort of a digital set of training for digital in the construction industry, mostly around BIM. That's been delivered by ATU and Trevor McSharry and those type of guys. We started on a really interesting project around modular construction. It's twisted, and this is probably good. It's twisted in terms. It went down this far and then it's twisted. So we're not sure where that's going to end up, but it kind of gives you an idea of some of the projects we're getting involved in. And that's kind of it, right? So it gives you a flavor. So what I recommend is if you're interested or somebody else is interested, just ping any of those numbers. Just go on the website. But the best thing is to ping me and just have a conversation and see if it's good. Okay. And it's been a learning, you know, we are going to have to adjust with the other 80s, how we maybe operate going into the next couple of years based on some learnings. And there's a big emphasis coming from Enterprise Ireland and the department as to how do you make it a network? How do you say, okay, I'm meeting a company in North Donegal that they really need the help of a seeder, but they need something else other than just seeder, and let's do that together. So how do they work together? That's a big emphasis. And the fund is flexible to allow that. That's good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Does anybody have any questions for Mike or anything online? Any questions for Mike? And Jackie,
Learn a bunch of things now. So
Jackie is
For the moment, no questions. I'm asking the attendees to put the questions in the chat, and then if there are some, we can go through the Q&A session part. Okay.
Thanks, Jose.
Yeah. You're welcome, Carol.
Thanks. Morning, everyone. I'm Jackie Fitzgerald from Enterprise Ireland, and I work in the Disruptive Technologies Innovation Fund team. It's great to be here today, where I'm going to talk to you generally about the call that's open at the moment, which is call 7. So the fund, it's 500 million fund. It was launched back in 2018. It's different to any fund that's run out of Enterprise Ireland, in that the fund is managed by our colleagues in the Department of Enterprise Trade and Employment and administered by Enterprise Ireland. So far, of the 500 million fund, 371, probably over 380 million of that has been allocated. We've run 6 calls so far, and we're coming to the end of the current call, which is call 7. So right now we have been funding around 104 projects, and all of these projects are collaborative in nature. So we're working with around 390 organisations in total. I mentioned call 7. It was launched in May of last year, and it closed at 5 p.m. on the 30th of April. I have in this presentation, I have all of the links that you may need to all the information on call 7, the guide for applicants. Our colleagues in the department also have put together a very good dashboard of information on every project that has been funded since 2018. A list of all of the partners. You can search that dashboard by location, by region, by research priority area, and so on. And I've given you a link to that too in this presentation. So at any stage, if it is some fund that you're interested in taking part in, or you're interested in finding out who locally, what other partners are taking part that you may be interested in approaching to talk about the fund and their experience of it, all of that information is in the public domain on the department's website. So this is the DTIF team in Enterprise Ireland. Imelda Lampkin is the head of department, and there are 4 portfolio managers. So we work on running and administering the calls, but we also, that portfolio of 104 projects, 290 organisations, we work hand in hand with each of those organisations when it comes to actually drawing down the funding. We monitor all of the projects as they're going along, looking to see what impact they're having and so on. But predominantly, we work with them in drawing down the grants. At any stage, you can contact any one of them. Our email addresses are our first name, last name at enterpriseireland.com. Or after today's session, if you have any questions at all, you can contact me directly, of course. Be more than happy to talk to you. But you can also send any queries directly into the DTIF mailbox, where each of us will pick up your queries and come back to you. So the objective of DTIF then is to support really game-changing, disruptive technology projects that has the potential to significantly alter markets or change the way that businesses operate. By their very nature, these disruptive technology projects are of such high risk, they would struggle to get support from the private investment, that the state must have a role to play in supporting these because no other player will support them. They're such high risk. All of the projects must show that they have commercial impact between 3 and 7 years. And by their very nature, these are all collaborative projects. So these are research organizations and companies collaborating on industrial research and experimental development. This is a snapshot of the research priority areas that we have been funding in the first 6 calls. You can see from the pie chart here, over 55% of the portfolio is health and wellbeing projects or life sciences projects. They've been hugely successful in getting DTIF funding. That's followed by around 18% in ICT, 12% in manufacturing, 10% in energy, climate and sustainability. And then we just had 1 or 2 projects, or we've had 1 or 2 projects in the food and innovation services research priority areas. The typical size of the grant in each of the projects that we've funded so far would have been around 3 to 4 billion. And the typical consortium size is around 4. We have had, particularly in call 1, the first call that we ran, we had 1 project with 13 partners, which, as you can imagine, was an absolute nightmare for the lead partner to coordinate and to manage. That was extremely difficult, I have to say. But we've had anything from 3, 4, 7, but typically the sweet spot really is around 4 partners, I would say.
In terms of health and wellbeing in that specific sector, was there any reason why that's so large?
The health and wellbeing, the life sciences projects in particular, have a fantastic track record of success in Horizon 2020 funding, European funding. They tend to come into us, the projects are looking at that phase 2A clinical trial activity, which is an activity that really isn't funded, I don't think, by any other body in the state. So for that reason, DTIF has been a real commitment for those particular projects. They also, there's a couple of consultants also, particularly in this region, who are really fantastic, really excellent about working with these consortia, bringing them together, helping them write their proposals, so that when it comes to evaluation, we find that those projects in particular, those proposals in particular, have a really good chance of success. So I think that probably is definitely the yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about the risk element? Because if you're pitching a business plan or a proposal, I mean, you're very much trying to convince investors that you're de-risking it. That's the way you're presenting it. And indeed, if an investor felt that it was too risky, he wouldn't do it.
We're finding.
So, I mean, it's like any of these narratives. It's the way you say it. In some cases, apart from reality. So, could you give any examples of how you do risk assessment? Is that why it's health and well-being? Is it something like you're developing a drug, and of course, you really don't know if it's going to work until you've completed your clinical trials or whatever.
That's it, exactly.
And therefore, you would say, well, hey, that's risky, but if it works, it's got a brick in the wall.
That's exactly it. And what we're finding, we're hearing from companies at least, what the investors are saying to them, they don't want to get involved in a lot of the projects that we're funding unless they've had DTIF. Unless they have been successful in Disruptive Technology Innovation Fund. It has been a game changer for so many companies, particularly small companies who've taken part in the fund, where they've been at too early a stage in terms of the risk of the research that they're proposing to conduct for an investor to take that chance on them. They go through DTIF, they could be halfway through a DTIF project when the investors will then come on board. And then we're seeing some serious examples of big Series A funding going into some of those projects.
Right.
So this, I'm not going to read out this slide here, but it's there for you for reference. All of the activity that can be funded under DTIF Call 7 falls within the scope of industrial research and experimental development. And that's within technology readiness levels 3 to 9. So there's quite a wide scope of activity that can be funded under DTIF. But the rules of the scheme are such that the only activity that can be funded and drawn down under DTIF has to fall within the scope of these definitions as set out by General Block Exemption Regulation G. You can see I've highlighted here in red, these definitions have really just recently been updated to include digital products, processes and services in any area, technology, industry or sector. And I think the reason I've highlighted that is because that is particularly relevant, I think, to this audience today. So some of the changes I mentioned, that DTIF CoLab was launched last May and will close in April. That was unusual for DTIF. It's the first time that we extended the call opening and closing time. Typically a call, all of the previous calls, 1 to 6, were open for 3 months. But our colleagues in the department were keen that we opened this particular call for a much longer period of time to give more time for consortia to get together and to write their proposals and to submit, and also to spend a lot more time consulting with the agencies in advance to rule out or to make sure that they didn't fall down on any of the eligibility criteria. In every single call that we run, it's always in the previous calls 1 to 6. It's always very disappointing when we see projects, really good proposals fall because they haven't met the eligibility criteria, which sounds like a bit of a no-brainer, but believe it or not, in every call there's always a few, and it's such a shame for the effort that has the consortium put together and for the projects themselves, really good projects, not to get to that next stage because of simple not being able to, comply with the eligibility criteria.
Do you have the eligibility criteria coming up?
Yeah, it's coming up. It is indeed. Another thing, it's something that was different as well with CoLab is we absolutely insisted that all partners engage, enterprise partners in particular, engage with their agency executives in advance, again, to try and minimise the number of failures around eligibility. And also from the 1st of January 2024, some changes to general block exemption regulation treatment of overheads has happened. I won't dwell into that, but just be aware that if you have taken part in a previous DTIF call, be mindful that read the guide for applicants. There are some changes there around overheads, treatment of overheads. So this is the application and approval process. We ask companies to engage with their agency executives straight away when they're thinking of applying. The lead partner coordinates the proposal for the consortium and submits it. When the lead partner is submitting their proposal through our online application system, that is dedicated to DTIF, the company partners also submit their financial information. The first step is the eligibility screening that takes place by our grants admin team. Once you get through the eligibility screening, the proposal is then sent to a trio of international independent evaluators who evaluate the proposal under 4 criteria, which I will come to. And if the proposal scores 60 or above in each of the 4 criteria, that proposal is then, the consortium is then invited in for the third stage of the evaluation process, which is a panel interview. They bring 5 members of the consortium to the panel interview. They were given an hour-long question and answer session with the 3 international evaluators, and Enterprise Ireland chairs that session. And if they score at the end of the panel meeting, if they score above 60 in the 4 criteria, they are then deemed fundable. And we send a paper to our DTIF advisory board, who then makes a recommendation to the minister to approve that project. In parallel or along that whole process, our commercial evaluation team in Enterprise Ireland works with the agency executives on undertaking your difficulty assessments. They look to see that the companies, particularly taking part, have the financial and operational capacity to start the projects. And that is done kind of in parallel so as not to hold up the process. Once the minister has approved the project, and a press release normally issues around that, from that date of minister approval, the consortium have 12 months to get to contract. Now that probably sounds like a long time. These are really disruptive projects. Surely consortia should be ready to hit the ground running immediately once they're given the go-ahead. In some cases, they do, and it could take 3 months for them to do the contract. First to do the contract negotiation piece, get the consortium agreement signed, get all of the contracts signed, get the project up and running. But believe it or not, a lot of consortia do actually take that full 12 months in order to get to contract. We'd love it to be quicker, faster, but it can take 12 months. Once the 12 months has elapsed, that's it. The offer is null and void. So they are under pressure to get to contract within the 12-month period. And this is again where you have a consortium of 7, 8, 9 partners. You can see how that could cause all sorts of delays and difficulties. So this is how proposals are scored, or this is the evaluation criteria. There's the strength of the disruptive technology dimension, the excellence of the overall proposal and approach, the economic impact and sustainability, and the quality and efficiency of the collaboration. And as I mentioned, the threshold is 60. If a proposal scores 59, the combined scores of the 3 evaluations scores 59 of the remote evaluation, it will not go through to the next stage. That 60 is an absolute deal breaker. They must score 60 and above at the remote evaluation stage and at the panel interview. So this is the evaluation criteria, or this is the eligibility criteria. The consortium must be requesting funding of at least 1.5 million, and projects are typically run over 3 years. The consortium must have 3 independent partners. 2 of those must be enterprises. 1 of those enterprises must be an SME. Whilst most of the projects that we're funding have research performing organisations taking part in the consortia, 2 projects haven't had an RPO involved, and those projects have worked particularly absolutely fine. 3 enterprises collaborating together. So it's not a requirement to have a university involved, but as I said, the majority of the projects and proposals that we're funding have an RPO involved. SMEs claim 50% of their costs, large companies 40%, and RPOs 100%. Applicants must be a client of the agencies, either Enterprise Ireland, Údarás or IDA Ireland. The partners must be located in Ireland, and the majority of the work in the proposal must be carried out in Ireland. I mentioned already, once the lead partner is submitting the proposal, the enterprise partners must submit their financial documentation at the same time to the DTIF Finance email address here. Obviously, the proposal must be received before 5 p.m. on the 30th of April. And where an RPO is taking part, your research office must sign the application to say that you discussed it, that they're aware that you're submitting this application for funding with the consortium. So I think I mentioned this also earlier, enterprises cannot be undertaken in difficulty. That is a state aid rule where 50% of the accumulated losses cannot be more than the shareholder funds. It's a ratio test. It's not a solvency test. It's a ratio test. In the guide for applicants, there's about 2 pages, all their guidance around undertaking a difficulty assessment. If anyone is thinking of applying, absolutely talk to your project executive in the agency, your development advisor, and also your finance team to run those numbers to make absolutely sure that you're not going to be undertaking a difficulty, because that will rule you out and will rule the proposal out for the whole consortium, if that's the case. I mentioned already, early stage companies should have the operational financial capacity to participate. Small companies, that is companies employing less than 50 people, can apply for pre-finance once the project is up and running. And pre-finance is 1/3 of the grant up front. Again, the assessment that's taking place on that is it's sent out for external assessment by ourselves. You'll submit your financial documentation, and we looked at the balance sheet to see if the pre-finance payment of 1/3 had to be repaid in the morning, do you have assets in your balance sheet that can do that, that can repay the grant? And once you pass that test, we approve the pre-finance payment and pay it up front. The pre-finance payment acts as a float over the 3 years of the project. So a small company can take part in the research project, can build up costs, and every year, every 12 months, whilst they already have their 1/3 up front, they can still submit grant claims and be paid those grant claims up until the point that 80% of the grant has been paid. And then the remaining 20% or no other payments can be made until the final claim can be submitted. Again, it's a fantastic support for early stage companies to really get them, to let them hit the ground running on these projects in terms of hiring people and so on. I mentioned clinical trials. We can fund up to phase 2A clinical trials, and all partners in the consortium must sign a consortium agreement. We have a template for that consortium agreement. We mandate it for use, and we don't look for any changes. Sometimes there may be, particularly we find with some of the IGA companies taking part, they may have 1 or 2 tweaks that they may want to put into the consortium agreement, and we'll discuss those. But typically, the consortium agreement, as is, we expect all partners to sign up to that consortium agreement pretty much without any changes. And copies of all those documents, the guide for applicants, the UID questionnaire, the consortium agreement template, are all available at this link here on the department's website. And I've also included a link here to submit.com, which is the online application system dedicated to DTIF Code 7. So I'm aware that the deadline of the 30th of April is fast approaching. It may not be something that has been on your radar to consider up to now. So we're getting a lot of inquiries at the moment about Call 8. What next? What's going to happen after April? And the answer is we don't really know. What we do know, though, is that in January, when the Programme for Government was launched, DTIF is mentioned in that. So we're really relieved to see that. That it is actually still on the radar for Programme for Government. Our colleagues in the department have commissioned Incom, a consultancy company, to do a full root branch review of DTIF and everything that we've been funding up to now, and then what next, what has worked well, what could work better, and so on. And we'll have the results of that, we expect, shortly after the call close. So my advice is, if you are interested in DTIF, absolutely keep an eye on the department's website at this link here. All announcements and notices are published there. We expect there will be some changes to the criteria of the fund. I expect there will. What those changes are going to be, we don't know. So we're waiting with bated breath to see what that's going to be. And we're very excited about that. So that's in Disruptive Technologies Innovation Fund. Any questions?
Yeah, is there any companies around here that have that received the funding, like companies that we would know around Letterkenny or Donegal area?
There's a huge number around the Galway area, and in fact, NUIG, I just took a look at the numbers before I came down. I think they've taken 66 million of the fund, NUIG alone. ATU has taken around 2 million of the fund, and they're taking part in 3 projects.
Does ATU Galway?
No, ATU Letterkenny, right?
And Sligo, or?
I'm not sure about Sligo, Carol. I tell you, there's a project called eCrop that is led by UCD, Professor Fiona Doolan, and they're looking at microbiome research into improving soil nutrition. And they're a Call 3 project that's about to come to an end. UCD have been leading the project with crop biome, seq biome, doing the DNA sequencing, and land CTR, which is a New Ross client based about 50 kilometres north of here. And they've been doing the glasshouse greenhouse trials on that particular project. And that's been an extremely well done project. UCD have done a brilliant job on that one. And there's going to be some really good results coming out of that. And they've been filing IP. Again, it's something that we measure at the end of every project. We're looking at impact, how many patents have been filed, how many jobs have been sustained or created since the start of the project, what is the commercialization potential of any spin-out companies likely to come out of this, and so on. So they're a great example of somebody who's right here, actually north of here, who would take part in DTIF. Okay, thank you.
Could you just, sorry, Carol. Could you just refresh again how many partners do you need?
A minimum of 3.
3.
But you can have as many as you wish.
Yeah. And the partners can be SMEs, companies, RPOs.
One of them must be an SME.
Only one. So you can have 1 SME and 2 RPOs, right?
No, you must have 2 enterprise partners. One of those enterprise partners must be an SME.
Okay.
You could have 4 enterprise partners and no RPO. And they could be 4 SMEs. They could be 3 large companies, 1 SME. The SME is a deal breaker.
So 2 SMEs and an RPO would work. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And in fact, we have lots of those. Yeah.
What did you say? Sorry, the average project size was as well. I just missed that.
About 4 million in grant across the 104 projects that we're funding. But there's anything, especially in the most recent call 7, the numbers of which I haven't included in this because the call isn't finished yet. So, you know, we've been approving them on a case by case basis. I mean, the typical grant size on the call 7 projects that we've got approved are probably around 7 million. So that grant size is increasing. The highest grant that has been approved due to right across the whole portfolio is 11.5 million. And that was with a company based in Galway.
That was actually a grant, not
Grant.
expenditure.
Grant. Yeah.
Just the leasing coordinating partner is it typically an RTO or is it?
It can be either. Let me just get this right now. 70% of all of the projects are led by an SME.
Okay.
20% are led by an RPO and 10% by a large company. And large company will tend to be an IT Ireland client.
Or is it?
Or?
Is it?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, although mostly in Udros, the Udros clients that we're working with are SMEs. People like Iron Biomedical that were acquired by Institute and they're in Galway, Bribant. Yeah.
Thanks very much. That is very interesting. Just in terms of startups and stuff like that, you mentioned, Stephen asked a question about wellness, and you said they need to be in phase 2. So startups really, this is not for them, is it? Or even though it was the idea could drastically change something and it crosses all the spheres, is there space for them in this?
There definitely is, and particularly in the life sciences side. Most of those, I would say, are startups. I'm thinking of companies, these would typically be companies that might be coming out. BioInnovate down Galway have had a huge success in DTIF. So many of their funded startups have gone on to get DTIF funding and run successful projects. I'm thinking of one in particular, Perfuse. Do you know Perfuse? Perfuse Medical, based in Galway, collaboration with Teleflex, IDA company, and VistaMed in Carrick-on-Shannon. So that was an example of a project with just 3 enterprise partners in it, led by an SME, Perfuse. Perfuse, they developed this clot ingestion system for a stroke. Their project was to bring that to phase 2A. They were a call 2 project, coincided with COVID, which was an absolute nightmare for them. Because they were medical devices companies, they could actually continue to carry out the work through COVID. They have told us that DTIF was an absolute game changer for them because it allowed them to stay on track. They have just recently, it's a company led by Wayne Allen. They have just, I think I just saw on the news this week or it's last week, they've raised another 25 billion Series B. And they're running their clinical trial now out of the States in targeting around 500 patients. They've done trials in Beaumont Hospital and then right across the States and in the UK as well. If you're interested in them, they actually post, they do it on Twitter or X, whatever it's called now. They post some of the procedures that have been done around this clot ingestion procedure. It's an absolute game changer for treatment of stroke. And that is an example of a truly disruptive technology that is going to change the treatment of care for stroke. And they're proving it. They had done a couple of trials, they've done a couple of, and you don't call them trials really, I suppose, but they've been doing some work with Beaumont when they got involved with DTIF, and now this is where this is their trajectory as a result of the DTIF funding that's gone into them. They're an SME, they employ, at this stage now they're employing around 20 people. But when they came to us, they probably had around 10, 12. That's an example.
What about startup with 0 people? is on the
That's a
evaluation.
Because once once it is a challenge with 0 people, and we have had some, that's where they would say to us, well, we have 12 months to get a contract, and in that 12 months, we're going to recruit a team, a research team. I mean, that is ambitious. But some companies can do it. Some of them don't, and they end up getting to the 12-month mark, and they haven't been able to even get to the next stage of starting the project. In call 4, we had 3 projects out of, was it 26, that just didn't get started. For that very reason, they were led by companies that had come out of Common Fund, Commercialisation Fund, and were going straight into DTIF, and it was just too early for them. So it's something that when you talk to your agency executive about, you think about when is the right time for your company, but absolutely keep it on your radar. There's 130 million of the fund left in the first tranche of 500 million. We're hoping there'll be another 500 million. That's what we're lobbying for with our colleagues in the department. At least another 500
an
million.
agent. I am an agent for I work for one of the state bodies, so I'm asking from my perspective how I would give that information to them. So
Yeah, I was going to say.
you know,
that.
so
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that.
But the test, the commercial test,
The UID.
is going to be challenging for startups.
Well, not necessarily.
Yeah, that's what we need.
Once,
Do
once
they
they're
get
less,
excluded?
once they're less than 3 years of age,
Okay.
they're exempt from UID.
Oh, right, that's interesting, yeah. And I'm
So they can pass that UID test quite significantly. The test that they will struggle with is if they're part of the work plan, wants to grant of 1 million, they're going to have that other matching, that other million.
And can that be got for other source of funding that they've already applied on, for example, HBSU? Yeah.
It has to be private.
That's another thing, it has to be.
Skin in the game.
With that,
That's incorrect.
yeah.
That's the barrier.
And whereas you mentioned the ratio there earlier on, you know, in terms of IUI and stuff like that. How does that work? Say I have a HBSU at the moment that has got a lot of potential. I think that can drastically change things. But it's an early phase, which is an innovation venture at the moment, and I don't know where to take it. They don't know where to take it. What kind about that kind of junction?
Take him to Mike first, didn't you?
Tend to maybe
And which agency are you?
address.
We talked to Miriam. Miriam on the following up to Sinead themselves. We've been working really closely with all 3 on UID tests for those clients that have been coming in code 7.
Okay.
Have that initial conversation with them. Take a look at work with them, looking at their books to see. I think the date of UID test is 5 months from the date of application. So your most recent management accounts will be looked at to see where you fit on that ratio. And the test, the assessment, an example of the assessment is in the follow that. Talk to your clients. Your own management.
Addresses management.
No, your own. The HBSU, the company.
HBSU has no management accounts too.
Very
It's
good.
HBSU.
You're less than 3 years of age?
Yeah.
Well, then you're exempt from UID. You don't have to worry. Up to the point of application. Yeah, 3 years from date of application prior to, if you're incorporated if you're less than 3 years old on the date of application, you're exempt from UID.
So if you're less than 3 years old, you have to be 3 plus to apply, is that what you're saying?
No.
Three
You
older.
apply at any time, but the UID test is carried out if you're more than 3 years old.
But you still have to pass the balance sheet test.
No,
Yeah.
Not if you're under 3 years.
What would you, for the match fund, say like to get the match
Get the
fund?
match.
No matter what, you're going to need the match funding, because the question will be asked, as soon as you start your project,
Yeah.
how are you going to fund
Okay.
your team that you're recruiting? Most of the costs that are submitted and claimed under DTIF are salary costs. It's a capability building jobs or the objective for the fund. Obviously to carry out, fantastic research, but also to create jobs, really good research jobs.
And is there a lifespan for those jobs? Is it 3 to 5 years per job, or is it just?
No,
It's an ongoing.
No, and an interesting one, Carol, on ours, when for all of our other offers that we have a value for money metric,
Yeah.
where the previous grant funding that's gone to the company gets taken into account. DTIF doesn't get pumped. It's outside of it. It's money that's outside of the EI system, which means that it's a great source of funding to go for. Yeah.
What about, I know this is not your space, what about Horizon money, creative money, all of that? Is that maybe a better way for HBSU to
It's certainly, and you should talk to some of our national contact points. We have a team of Attendees in Enterprise Ireland where we have national contact points allocated to the various sectors who will be more than happy to talk to you about your proposal for EIC funding. They will bring you through and invite you to an investor-ready pitching session, a practice pitching session with a panel of investors who have a lot of experience in EIC. It's a really valuable thing to do. You can go pitch to that panel a few times to get your presentation right. What we're hearing, please don't quote me on this, but what we're hearing from companies that are going for EIC, that have also an awful lot of the companies that got EIC funding are getting teacher funding as well. It's whatever's changing in EIC, the number of, I don't know if you guys are hearing this, but the number of projects that are getting through is slim and nil. It's becoming extremely difficult to get EIC funding. But talk to our national contact points who will give you the steer on that straight away.
Okay.
Sorry, what was that EIC funding?
European Innovation Accelerator. Yeah.
Is that because the funds are just becoming tighter and tighter?
Haven't they changed the model of grants to equity? And the equity piece of it is taking forever for companies to actually do their due diligence on that. Okay. So that's becoming very difficult. In terms of their panels, I've heard from some of the companies due to, and this is 3 strikes and you're out. You can go 3 times with the proposal for the Horizon funding. But on the 3rd time, if you don't get through, that's it, you can't come back in again. There's having different evaluators on in each panel. Some of those evaluators are, I've heard feedback. Talk to your own people that have been, that you know,
number of applications that have gone through the roof as well. Like the latest ones, they've received 3 times more than they expected. So it's very,
it's becoming, from what we're seeing anecdotally, it's becoming very, very difficult to get through this.
Yeah, I mean, the success rate is very, very competitive. I did get a European project about 2019. I got one, which is great. But you're actually saying that it's getting harder and harder.
That's what we're hearing from our company.
Getting better.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, people are getting wiser to help wiser.
Yeah, so it's gone through the roof.
That's correct. That's what we're hearing. Bear in mind that the success rate in DTIF is 1 in 3.
The what?
The success rate in DTIF is 1 in 3.
So it want to be a good, strong.
Is that application coming out the other side?
It's coming out the other side. Go through those 3 steps that I mentioned. Make sure you have all your evaluation. It's a no-brainer to pass the evaluation, the eligibility criteria. Tune into the 4 criteria, particularly the first criteria, the strength of the disruptive technology dimension. That's the deal. That is the criteria that most projects will go down on at remote evaluation stage. Your proposal, the work that you're planning to do, has got to change the world. It's not just looking at it through the lens of Ireland. You're looking at this. These are international evaluators going to be evaluating your proposal. There's nothing else like this that you're doing. This is really high risk stuff. And it is going to absolutely change the way we do business and the way a sector operates. Concentrate on that dimension in particular, because that's where the highest failure rate is from us looking at all of our proposals across the board. Obviously concentrating the other 4 as well. Make sure the other 3, make sure you're going to pass over 60. And then be ready when it comes to panel interview. You'll be given a 10-minute to do a pre-recorded presentation on your proposal. And then you're ready with your consortium to answer 15 minutes of a fairly grueling question and answer session on your proposal. Nothing else, just on your proposal, what you've submitted. Get through that stage and you're deemed fundable. And up to now, every project that has been deemed fundable across all calls have been funded. In EIC, you can be deemed fundable, you can be, you can be on the list, but maybe only the top 3 are going to actually get funding. Everyone has got funding once they're deemed fundable. That could change. It could.
What's most successful?
Sorry, Darren?
What's been the most successful project?
Well, that Perfuse one is one that I worked with them right from the very start. They are superb. That is absolutely, that is a superb project. That is going to be a huge success. It is a huge success, just even in terms of the money that has been raised. There was a company, oh crikey, I didn't look after them. They were bought by Chesi, CHIESI, an Italian company, for, was it 130 billion? It was something enormous. Amaret was the name of the small company, small SME down in Cork. Was bought for mega money by that, and DTIF was a factor in that. There was a company that I worked with, Artomatics. They were a startup in Grange Gorman, DIT Grange Gorman, back in Call 1, back in 2018, 2019. They were acquired by Unity Corporation. They were doing 3D animation, graphics and stuff for Tomb Raider games and stuff. They were really ahead of their time. They were acquired by Unity Corporation at that time for $60 million US. Small team in Grange Gorman, 10 or 12 people working with them. That's incredible. And there's lots of those.
It's like watching your children grow.
Oh, it's just.
But you keep track of the companies as they.
We stay very close to them over the 3 years because we're meeting them to draw down their grants, and we're looking at when they're drawing down their grants, we're looking at the criteria of the scheme, we're looking at the state aid rules, and we're applying those to the costs they've submitted. So we work with our financial assessors in our inspections team, and then we look at the technical progress of the project, where it's at, right through that 3 years, and we do that on an annual basis. We were doing them every 6 months, but it was too much for them, too much for everybody. So we moved that to an annual reporting. And so we stay very close to them at that point. We do an evaluation at the very end, then when they submit their final report, and that's shared with our colleagues in the department, who go on then to do press releases on them, on case studies, and they keep an eye on them really more than we do. But to be honest, there's 4 of us. It's a huge portfolio. You're straight on to the next ones, really. But obviously, in EI, we know who our babies were, the ones that that you've worked with, and you kind of map them. We keep an eye on them, of course we do. But we don't formally stay in touch with them. A lot of them, though, because you've been working closely with them for 3 years, you've got a very strong relationship with them at that stage. At the end of the project, you really desperately want them to succeed. They stay in touch. They'll come back in. Who can you connect them in with, and so on, and that's great.
But I think
there's no formal mechanism to follow to keep with them.
Once they've gone through the process once and it has been a success, they're more likely to come back as a repeater. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
They call 4, 5, 6, 7, because they know the process, and it's like an organic. Actually, once you know how to, once you're great to do the second and third and fourth.
Exactly. And if you go into that first slide that I have put up, or maybe it was the second one, that has that link to the dashboard. That's from extra interesting reading. If you just click on the map, see who you know locally that has been doing this, particularly around Galway. I mean, Embryonics are doing exceptionally well. They have taken part in about 4, if not 5 teaching projects. So like that, once they come in and are successful.
Just on that, say you go through your phases there, and you're at agreement, consortium level agreement. That's a 12-month agreement, and 12 months to come to agreement to 3 or 4 parties involved, the SME and whoever. That's when the deal is struck. That is it, and the works that need to be carried out.
It's really where, for us, the main thing is the proposal. What is it you're going to do? What are you mapping out? It's in the application form. It's a 50-page application form, PDF, and it's your proposal that says what it is you're going to do, what you're going to develop, how the work packages. You're going to have a certain number of work packages. You're going to have deliverables going off that. You're going to have milestones that are critical to meet across the consortium. What we like to see is a balanced consortium. We don't want to see somebody doing 90% of the work plan and then 2 partners doing 10% and 10%. That's you want to see it fairly balanced. Everybody's working to the same. Everybody's bringing, they're all fully committed to the work plan and have deliverables and milestones each to deliver. The work plan is the key one for us. The consortium agreement is more that the consortium get together and decide how they're going to share out the IP and how they're going to deal with the IP. And there's some strong guide that we really urge to use the template that's there. We worked with KTI on that. It's kind of saves you going into huge legal fees, running up your own consortium agreement. It's there, the work is going for you. And it shows that's where you agree what you're bringing into the project and how you want to handle whatever it is developed through the project, who's going to own what. The IP bit, section 9 of the consortium agreement is the key piece. The rest just says that when is the commencement date, how are you going to manage the project, have you a project board. It's the IP bit of it that you should concentrate on your consortium agreement and get everyone to sign up to that.
With the startup piece, the agencies kind of speculating, really, aren't they?
Say which?
With a HPSU, that's zero and it's beyond IDSH, within this, the agency is as us, we're speculating within there, whether to get something out of the IP at a later date or potentially get jobs down the line. So that's a risky piece for an agency, particularly with HPSU, where when you have a company that's established and they've got X amount of jobs, project comes to fruition and there's more jobs down the line. As agencies, that's what we're about, jobs, economic development.
Yeah.
So with the HPSU piece, that's extremely difficult for an agency to put skin in the game there when they're not too sure down the line. It takes us away from what we are and what we're meant to be, or maybe what we should be. It's a different space and it's a different appetite as well. I guess that's senior management, but I just need to square that.
When at any stage, you have my contact details.
Okay.
And then so you're ready for us.
Sorry.
Yeah, but I mean, talk to Miriam or talk to us directly. We're constantly in touch with Miriam.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Paul, as I said, and Sinead. So either talk to the guys themselves and see what their experience are, what companies. How many UDROS companies do we have? High tech health, I can list them all
They're
out.
generally established companies that are going to phase 2, phase 3.
Well, there's one, talk to Miriam about one. There's one, I'm not going to mention her name.
Okay.
They're not.
I'm basically doing all of us, but
All right, well, there's one that's coming to Galway that isn't established. And
so sometimes within that, well,
but you're right, most of the UDROS plans are established. There's Animal Medical, as I said, it's private. There's high tech health, we've been very successful in DTIF. There's Land 60 Euro, they're small. There's a couple more now.
yeah, I know that.
Brand new.
The agent that deals with that, so very good.
So one last quick question. So obviously the co-fund on the SME side, all that stuff's challenging, but just the whole application process of sort of funding to get to the point where it's credible, pitch ready, all that. How does that's ultimately up to the consortium to fund that until it gets to that point? Clear?
Absolutely.
Okay.
There's no support for
So
that.
one of the mechanisms that might be, and I know that IMR, Tractor Exchange, Cedar,
They've been very successful in DTIF.
yeah,
Yeah.
so one of the opportunities might be, remember that the EDH funds mostly goes into the RTOs, mostly it doesn't kind of go to the company, but at least, and this is an objective, the objective is how could you get to that shortlist who need help to get to the application level? So in other words, it's investment to seek investment. So if there's a mechanism where you can go to the University of Galway or ATU or any of the EDHs cover almost all of the universities, you could say we need support to get to X,
And use your fund to start,
Yeah.
like a feasibility study.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is exactly what.
That's I didn't really emphasize that because I don't feel strong on that.
Yeah,
But
that would be great.
Getting that, we find.
no, it's not to the company, right? It's not going to the company. You have to find a mechanism, but you say, whatever it is.
And I know some companies particularly would really welcome that.
Yeah, we should structure something around that, and then just have a panel of it.
Because there is a massive cost.
Because that's why Bio-Innovate. The reason Bio-Innovate is so strong, it's the combination of the whole business structure, they have a mechanism of growth. But if you're coming from non-class,
Yeah.
it's really hard.
You're absolutely
We should structure stuff around that and work with the other areas to
Absolutely.
not necessarily just this area in this region, but just kind of cross.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And definitely for this region is important, Mike, and don't forget, we need some more critical mass.
No.
So Donegal, I think we're a bit lagging behind.
Again, I probably should draw attention to it, but on one of my slides, a third of the fund has gone to the west and northwest.
Yeah, but a third of that
way.
way.
I know.
The way.
We
We have to be concentrated in our.
Yeah, totally. But no, and any help that you need to.
Yeah, we should
worship on that?
Yeah.
we'd be more than happy to do that.
Yeah, we should.
I think
We
we
can
should
make
look
that
at that.
happening and just go figure out a way to go to the thread.
Mike, we can get Chris O'Malley involved in.
Yeah.
You know, the aim centre as well.
Yeah, no, it's all, yeah, like I said, there's all sort of crossover.
The II up here is the innovation centre up here.
Yeah.
Hello, Jackie from online. Since you are also commenting on the Northwest, we have a question from Sylvester Clancy. I don't know, Sylvester, if you can unmute yourself. If not, I can make it for you. I think maybe you're mute. Yeah, the question is that if two RPOs from the Northwest Cities region can apply. In this case, is ATU and University of Ulster.
Oh,
No, a University of Ulster
is that?
is outside our.
Okay, so from the north, they are not eligible. Okay.
No, they must be in the 26 counties.
Yeah. Okay.
Watch that space for
For further,
the
for the next call, I'd say
They
they
may
have to.
well consider All Ireland. That would not be surprised if they did.
They'd have to.
So Jose, that absolutely could change. So keep an eye on that. That link that I put into the presentation. At any stage, reach out to me, to any of my colleagues on future calls. And what has changed. The key thing around it is what has changed. And there will be changes. Again, there's bound to be changes. I'm sure for the good.
Is there
Thank
any
you.
more questions online, Jose?
No, this was the only one for the moment. Thank you. And I think it's
All right.
clear for Sylvester. So thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Jackie.
And Haggerty from the local enterprise office is going to tell you there are more ways to get funded.
The enterprise Europe network.
Thank you. Good morning. I think we're still in the morning, are we? So my name's Brenda Haggerty. I'm the head of enterprise with the local enterprise office, and Stephen Perry, my colleague, is joining me this morning. So I'm going to look, so going from Jackie changing the world, I'll bring us back to changing the business and look at the supports that are available to bring digital transformation into the actual business and what those supports are from a local enterprise office, Enterprise Ireland, and UDRIS, who Huey is here from, have replica supports the same as the Leo and Enterprise Ireland, so you can use them interchangeably if you are a UDRIS client. And then I'm also going to look at Enterprise Europe Network. So in terms of the digital supports, so I suppose for the government, there is a big, huge objective to get digital transformation in every company. And we are a county and a country of small businesses. So it's really imperative that we embrace digital transformation for our very micro and our small businesses. And increasingly, because of the technology advances that are happening, the technology that was once the preserve of large companies is now accessible and affordable for every business. So this is what a lot of the supports. But in order to get us started on our journey, the first stage in anything is an assessment of where you are. So as a business, the first point of the journey, the digital transformation journey, or even if you're along that journey, is to do an assessment. And the government have developed a self-assessment tool that takes 5 minutes to complete and looks at where you are in your digital transformation journey. And that's the first stage that we recommend, regardless of what supports them, that you go in. And that is the Grow Digital .gov.ie. Quick and straightforward, and you get a printable report from that. The second stage then, if you're a LEO or small UDRIS client, is the digital for business. And this is a assessment opportunity where there is support to look at where your challenges are, where the opportunity for embracing digital technology is. And then that's all about looking at how you can eliminate waste and paperwork and digitalize systems, look at how you can operate and be much more business focused, look at CRM systems, or digitalizing and enhancing the customer experience. So basically what the digital for business support is up to 3 days expert assistance with a digital consultant that can really go in under the bonnet of your business and see where you are on your journey, where your challenges are, where the opportunities from a digital transformation is, and come up with a roadmap, which will set clear goals and objectives, identify opportunities, and also, most importantly, look at the prioritization. What you do in a sequence, look at the cost and your likely return of investment. So a nice roadmap for your business in terms of the digital transformation journey. And as I said, up to 3 days consultancy with which is valued at €900 per day in many cases, and there is no cost to the business. That's 3 days free consultancy. So it's an absolute no-brainer for any business, and it's eligible under the LEO. You can come in if you're under 50 employees, and you can be in any sector. It's not just the preserve of manufacturing or internationally traded. Do you want to say something?
And just one thing I think that's important to add as well, Brenda, is that a business might have done a digital for business 2 years ago, and I know you're going to touch on it, and their business could have radically transformed in 2 years. So at the beginning, it might be getting a website, getting social media presence. Now it's about those digital processes, and I think that's important for businesses just to realise that that's really important, that they can dip in at different stages.
Perfect. Every 2 years. So that's the other things. If you may have got a digital for business support previously, you can come back in every 2 years for that. And that then is a precursor for the next support that's available, and that's a Grow Digital Future. And this is where you have your roadmap, you've done your assessment, you have your roadmap, and now there's a particular piece of technology you need to bring into your business to start your digitalization or to enhance your digitalization journey. So the voucher is again available for any business up to 50 employees. They must have completed the Digital for Business report. So that's a prerequisite to get your Grow Digital voucher. You have to do the Digital for Business report, and it's in the form of a 50% support up to €5,000. And it's for really off-the-shelf or industry-specific supports. So what is eligible? Software, a lot of off-the-shelf software, whether that's CRM, whether it's online booking, whether it's website development, any aspect of your business that needs to be digitalized, and there is a software solution.
Cybersecurity,
Cybersecurity, just that's the long list there. You'll see cybersecurity software there, 3D modeling, basically any challenge or digitalization aspect of your business that's required, that's in the form of an off-the-shelf solution, 50% support. Up to 50%, which is 2,500, can be used for training and consultancy support. So it's not always just about buying the product, it's about integrating the product into the culture and the training and making sure that the staff are familiar with it. So that allows you to identify if all of the money should be spent on the product or if some aspects should be utilised to integrate and to train and upskill the individuals. So that's basically a run through of what the local enterprise office, it's quite straightforward self-assessment, the business digital for business consultancy support, and then the Grow Digital voucher. So under,
So can a CLG apply for that?
they can if they have a commercial focus.
So say could the AA, because it is a company.
Yes, if there is a revenue, yes. So they are eligible. CLG is eligible if they have a commercial income stream and that they would be paying tax only for their designation. The other thing I should say is that there is a solvency test as part of the process. So just what Jackie mentioned, so just looking at to ensure that the business as presented is viable and is solvent. So there will be a solvency test as part of the process.
It is so that is their self-accounts along with that as well.
And the application is straightforward. It's on, you contact the local enterprise office of your area, and straightforward application and decision-making process. Enterprise Ireland then, Carol will be more familiar with these, but I just wanted to give you an overview of what is available if you're an Enterprise Ireland client. And they mirror in many cases the local enterprise, but as the scale is slightly higher.
So
As you may
there's both Enterprise Ireland and Leo.
Sorry?
There's Leo and there's Enterprise Ireland.
Yes, so in Ireland, there's four enterprise agencies, I should say. IDA, which deals with the foreign direct investment, so clients that come into Ireland are IDA clients. They at a local level for what would have been traditionally up to 10 employees, but now it's expanded. The local enterprise office supports clients up to 50 employees. And we are an agency of Enterprise Ireland embedded within the local authority. And Enterprise Ireland then deals with Indigenous businesses up to 250 employees. UDRIS, who deals with clients across all them spectrums, operates in the gifted days. So every business would be a client of one or any of those agencies. But we are all integrated. Our policy and budgets come from Enterprise Ireland as a local enterprise office. So it's very similar. So in Enterprise Ireland, they offer what a business digital for business support is referred to as a digital discovery. They have 7 days consultancy. And it's not 100% funded, but it's almost 5,000 towards a cost of 6,300. And again, that's to do the deep dive within the business and come up with a roadmap for the business. They then have a digital process innovation grant, and that's a significant grant of up to 150,000, 50% support. And that's to look at the transformation of the digital systems within, and that can be operations, it can be front-facing in terms of customer experience, or a combination of that. So it's the implementation of the recommendations within the roadmap. They also have a digital marketing capability support scheme, and that's funding of up to 35,000 grant towards costs of 70,000. And that'll look in relation to the digital channels, the digital marketing support, and to encourage an enhancement of that within the business. So that covers training grants, consultancy, internal digital marketing, champion time within the business. And then the final support available for Enterprise Ireland is a dedicated cybersecurity review. And obviously one of the challenges with the whole digitalization is the cybersecurity and ensuring that as we transform into more digitally advanced companies, that our cybersecurity protects and is embedded within. So there's an 80% support up to 3,000 to support a cybersecurity review within the business. And what they're highlighting there is a 5-minute application. So they have really streamlined their process to facilitate. And the largest lab there is the AI person. So
It's 5 minutes each.
okay, so that's a run through of Leo and Enterprise Ireland. And now I'm just going to touch on Enterprise Europe Network.
Quick question, but on the cybersecurity, is that accessible to Leo clients as well?
No.
Yeah.
But if you're in, it can be facilitated under the Digital for Business grant or dedicated mentoring support. So we will facilitate through the instruments that are available through us, but there is not a dedicated cybersecurity review.
And then just in this region, is there a sort of panel of companies that the companies take the rights to?
Yeah, so we would have, there's three actually in Donegal that operate on our panel of cybersecurity companies. So, and for digitalisation, we have a panel of digital experts and consultants. So all the Enterprise Ireland have a dedicated panel, Hooters have a dedicated panel. Okay. So then in relation to Enterprise Europe Network, so this is a network that has been operating for a number of years. It's still a wee bit of a hidden gem, but basically it is a network of enterprise agencies around the world. So you can imagine having Enterprise Ireland or your local enterprise office with similar support if you want to go into a market in Italy, in France, in America, that your local enterprise agency can make connections with the relevant enterprise agency in that part of the world. And is a great support to internationalise and advance our enterprise base. So the three partners in the Enterprise Europe Network in Ireland is Enterprise Ireland, who are the lead partner, the Chambers of Commerce, which is Dublin Chamber of Commerce and Cork Chamber of Commerce, and the local enterprise offices. And the local enterprise office is led by the Donegal. So we in Donegal lead out on Enterprise Europe Network on behalf of our 31 local enterprise offices. So we have 2 dedicated EN officers within our team. And basically, Enterprise Europe Network can deal with any issue that is relevant to a small or medium-sized business. So it can help with innovation, internationalisation, sustainability, access to the EU single market, access to finance, including Horizon Europe, access with digitalisation and business partnering. So that's the suite of services that is available through the Enterprise Europe Network. But because of this theme, we'll just hone in for 2 areas. One is digitalisation. And basically from a digitalisation aspect from Enterprise Europe Network, the first thing Enterprise Europe Network did is actually develop the Grow Digital self-assessment tool that we spoke about earlier. So our colleagues in Enterprise Ireland EN liaised at a European level, looked at benchmarking across and created the Grow Digital self-assessment tool. And then the 4 eddies, which Mike has spoke about from Data to Sustain, the 4 eddies that are in Ireland, which are Factory Exchange, Data to Sustain, CEDAR and Empire. We provide the access for the companies. So Enterprise Europe Network provides access for companies into the 4 eddies. And there is a dedicated lady in Enterprise Ireland under Enterprise Europe Network, Andrew, who does that specific role. So usually what happens is a company comes through the local enterprise office, Enterprise Ireland or UDRIS. They need more advanced digital support and maybe looking at testing particular technology before they invest or viewing it. And then what Anne can do is build connections into the eddies and build collaborative projects. And then the other thing I want to just highlight from my EN, one of the best kept secrets of EN is the business partnering opportunities that are available through. So there is a dedicated business partnering website that has business offers and business asks from right across the world. So in Ireland, we have up 75 offers from a local enterprise office company alone. And that can be where somebody is looking for suppliers, particular supply chain challenges they may have. They may be looking for research partners to go in for collaborative projects, or they may look for agents or whatever. So it's a great facility that is available on it, and anybody can go in and access what is available, can filter it by contract. And then the other thing that we do under the Enterprise Europe Network is bring delegations of companies from Ireland to international. So we've done 6 missions from Enterprise Europe Network to different events and activities all over the world.
Can I just ask you a question? A very specific question. I have a French company that I believe I want to work with, you know.
Yes.
So it's not the problem of how you say locating them through visits, trade visits. You know, very often you find those things. It's all very great, but you're not finding someone who's in the same sector or field. So I mean, you can find them very easily by searching online. I have found this partner. Is there any assistance or benefits? Say, for instance, if you're partnering with this company, we're in the same market, allied sectors. So I'm trying to convince them to take on this product, and I think it'll be really good for them. Are there any incentives or assistances that are open to 2 European companies who would be working together?
There's no financial incentives, but what the network can do, if you've found your partner, for example, but you might need to do some due diligence on that. Are they a legitimate company? Are they right to do into a commercial arrangement with? Then the Enterprise Europe Network can facilitate through their agency due diligence or
like financial vetting.
To just make sure that you're entering into the right partnering arrangement with that company. So, and vice versa. If there is a French enterprise agency, they can contact yourselves and say, are you aware of Joe Blogg's enterprises? Are they up? Excuse me.
If you were involved in a technology,
are they delivering what they said, or can they go into a legitimate partnering arrangement?
Yeah, I think that it's while you did a business profile, whatever you want to report on them, I think it's pretty clear that they are a legitimate operator. So that's all.
Yeah, but if you had a little doubt or there was additional assurance that might be required, an enterprise agency contact that we can make the investigation on your behalf gives you additional assurance that you're entering into the agreement with the right type of company.
Okay, is there anything specifically that would be assistance for technology partnership? It's effectively a consortium.
Yes. It would only be through funds like the disruptive funds or Horizon Europe.
Clearly, that's really it's a big hurdle to look at.
Yeah.
You're talking about projects that are 3 million level minimum. I'm actually talking about a business development through technology with partnering with another European company.
Yeah, well, you can still get your supports through your enterprise agency if there's research and development aspect or whatever, but you'd have to speak to your specific enterprise agency advisor, and they will explore with you what is possible from a funding perspective.
Okay. Just on that, and maybe it's a little towards the next stage. One of the best examples I heard in terms of how EEN supported business was an EdTech business based further down the country, and they were moving into a new geography. I think it was actually Malta, and through the EEN, they facilitated I think 15 meets with potential customers. Can you imagine how much time that would take yourself to do that? So that for me was a really, really powerful example of where they can provide this local intel knowledge. So while there might be an initial immediate obvious financial advantage, there's huge future benefit and some time savings and access to knowledge in those specific markets.
Okay. That's a great example of what happens. So when we go on a mission with companies, it's not just, usually there's an event that's aligned with that, but then there's dedicated one-to-one meetings set up specific to that company to meet potential customers or suppliers in market so that they get traction within the market and boots, you know, on the ground as quickly as possible. Okay, so that's,
Sorry,
yeah,
all those requests and everything, they're still all anonymous, aren't they?
yes. So you
have
would
to get a
be,
number through, yeah.
yeah. So when we post a client profile,
Yeah.
we don't name the client, but you'd say what sector they're in, what their specific ask is. So it could be a soft drinks manufacturer in Donegal seeking bottle supplier, you know, a specific type of bottle or whatever. Now, you don't need that much intelligence to know that you could link the companies, okay, but their name is not up front and center. Okay, so that was a whistle-stop tour of the different supports that are available. But I suppose to just conclude, digital transformation is a journey, and it's not just about picking a piece of technology and bringing it into the company. This is a cultural change within the company, and it's about moving along a roadmap of what it is you need to do and how you're going to get there, and utilise the different agency supports that are there to facilitate that transformation. But the internal cultural change, the training, the upskilling, the integrating new technologies while still trying to operate is specifically challenging. So do reach out to the enterprise agencies. There's a lot of supports there, and best of luck with your digital journey. Not sure if there's anything.
Is there any questions online from Jose?
No,
We have just a practical question from the online audience, is that if the slides are going to be circulated, so if the presenters agree,
Yes.
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 we can circulate the attendees. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jose.
Gerald.
Dara.
Does the Grow Digital voucher the new trading online voucher?
No. No, as you rightly say, what was a very successful initiative through the local enterprise offices was a trading online voucher, and that allowed a lot of businesses to get digitally trading online, get their website developed and their presence going. That voucher scheme ended in December 2024. So, and the business case for the end of that is that most businesses in Ireland are now online and trading successfully. So the objective has been achieved. And that there are other supports available that will help those that are coming into the system to get their digital online presence moving forward. So the Grow Digital can be useful for some businesses to bring them online, or we can support them through mentoring or whatever. So I suppose that it's not a direct swap. For trading online, digital for business is more, Grow Digital voucher is more than just a trading online. But for some businesses, they will use the Grow Digital to enhance their online presence. So a yes and a no, Dara. Anything else? You're okay online there, Jose, so I'll close up with that.
Yes.
Thanks a million. I'll let you.
Thanks, Brenda.
Yes, thank you, Brenda.
So realise it's lunchtime. So.
Yeah.
Very quick.
Okay, so the project I'm going to talk about is IAS, so Innovation as a Service, and that was that's an ERNACT project funded by Enterprise Ireland, and it runs until the end of October this year. And the purpose of that is to try it's focused on manufacturing SMEs, and it's to bring the digital manufacturing solutions directly into their factory. So the target, as I said, was SMEs, in the manufacturing sector. And the aim is to accelerate the competitiveness of those SMEs in the border and western kind of area. So it's to allow them to introduce disruptive technologies into their organisations. The approach that we used was to connect with the growing number of innovation hubs that are popping up along the border and western area. So connect those innovation hubs with technology providers in the area, and that then in turn they can then signpost the SMEs to the correct digital transformation technologies on a needs to be basis. And this project arose from COVID and Brexit. So one of the key things in COVID was that the need for digital transformation in companies, the need to have an elastic workforce that could be quickly and assured business continuity. So that was how this project kind of originated in the first place. So I have there the network of kind of innovation hubs and the technology providers that are involved in this project. So starting from, I suppose, the AA, and I will show on CoLab, the different GTECs. We've got Ulster University, Northwest Regional College, which are the local providers. There's the ATUs, Letterkenny, Sligo, Galway, Mayo, the AIM Centre. So there's a number of different hubs, and they're growing all the time, and technology providers. The different types of digital transformation, so it ranges from IoT, robotics, 3D printing, machine learning, artificial intelligence, anything, big data, all of those things. So they're all kind of within Industry 4.0, which is for manufacturing. The targets we had in the project were to target 120 companies over the lifetime of the project, identify 60 new solutions and implement 40 within those SMEs. And at present, from all those knowledge providers, we have at the minute identified 127 solutions. And the aim of those solutions, the challenge for us was, how do you get the SMEs aware of all those digital transformation solutions that are available in the border western area? So the approach we took was to develop a platform. We call it the IAS platform, and that is where the hub managers can integrate that in their kind of day-to-day operations, so they can link with the knowledge providers. This platform has itemized all of the solutions that are available, and then they can then signpost the SMEs they deal with to these solutions. So we do that using VRs. We have the platform. We use VR. So we have developed. We found out through that obviously to get VR developed, if you wanted a virtual reality solution in your company, it's quite expensive. So what we've done is we've upgraded our own capacity, upskilled our own staff. So my senior can actually go out to technology providers and do a VR tour of their, let's say, for instance, Northwest Regional College, their Industry 4.0 Centre. She went there, did a VR tour, all of the different solutions they have, should it be 3D printing, robotics, whatever. We can put all them then up on the platform, so you could go through your SME using your VR goggles, whatever, and you can do a complete walkthrough of that technology provider, and you can see all the different types of technology they have, and then you can click on further. So if you're interested in 3D printing or whatever, you can click in and you can find out more information about that. And then through the hub managers, they can link you with that technology provider, where before an SME, say Malhead, that wanted to get information or implement a technology that was in ATU, Galway, Mayo, or whatever, would have to take a full day out of their, or maybe 2 days, to travel down there, meet the people down there and whatever. Now they can do it all using their VR from their local hub or from their own factory, and then they can decide what is it they want to do. They can link in and connect to that person, and then they can travel down if they want, or they can travel up or whatever. So we have that facility, and what I would say is that anybody wants a VR tour of their hub, technology, anything, we can provide that within this project to you. So that's I have a video here. I hope it plays to get you a snap.
Yeah.
Right. Press enter. No.
No, maybe mouse.
So it's just to give you a kind of an idea of the directory. Sorry, may not be. So you, through the VR tour, we also have on this platform, or this AES platform, or directory of services, all the different services that are available. So when you see something in the VR tour, you can go in there and get more information, find out what it's about, who the key contact is, and how you can get information about that there. We would encourage anybody that's interested to check out that platform. There's more details as well at the end. That's that one. Yeah, because I want to go on to the next slide. Sorry. Maybe escape. Landscape. Yeah. And this is some of our key partners. And I suppose what we should have here is the logos of all the hubs, the innovation hubs, and of the technology providers as well that will also work with us, because there's I think it's 42 at the moment that we have we've collaborated with, we've developed VR tours. But we've also found that the main purpose of those VR tours is so that we could upload them to this platform, so that the SMEs could go on them and check all the technology that is available. And as I said, there's 127 different types of disruptive technologies on it. But the other thing that's come out of this is these VR tours are very they're like very valuable for the actual hub or the technology provider themselves. They can put it on their own website and they can to showcase their own organisation, so that you can go on and you can see what's available. So they're using these VR tours themselves, as well as them being on the platform. There's a few that we have to go back because there's new, like for instance, FutureCast and Metro and the AIM Centre, who's now got new technologies, and they got a new Enterprise Ireland project, AI, and whatever, that we will have to update those VR tours. But anybody that wants to engage with us, please do. And as I say, this project runs on until the end of October. And we've also carried out training for the hub managers and the technology providers as well, in order to be able to use that platform so that they can signpost the SMEs to the different types of technology. And again, this is just showing you how we integrate. So through the hubs, that's how we link. The SME can go on the platform and they can find out where the disruptive technology is that they're interested in, and then through the technology providers and the hub managers, they can then get access to that and find out more information about it. It's actually another video. So again, these technologies are their manufacturing technologies.
And Northern Ireland as well as.
Yeah, so we've got Ulster University, Northwest Regional College, Southeast, the one and only Southeast College, or I can't. Southwest, yes. So right down as far as, so it goes right down as far as Dundalk. We have, people on it. And that's just the kind of the steps, so that you can discover and then find potential collaborators where that would have the expertise of those different types of disruptive technologies. Then interactively, you can visit and explore using VR and AR or whatever, and then connect with them online, like have a meeting or whatever online. And then you can interact and work directly with those technology providers through your local hub, or whatever. And then the end game then is to start modeling it to see how you can implement that in your own organisation. And that's it. And if anybody wants to get any more information at all, please let us know, because I say the project's going on until 31st of October. We're very keen to get anybody else up to develop more VR tours. We have the capacity in house now. My ship can go and like we have all the hardware.
You are selling really well, Katrina.
Yeah. But we're really keen to, you know, absolutely as many people in this area. We're also going to, we've found that a lot of the SMEs want to deal with like even European low knowledge providers, whatever. So we're working to maybe include some of them there as well, and to be able to stay posted further afield, further than the border and west to the rest of Ireland and on to Europe as well.
So in a nutshell, are you saying that what you do is you help SMEs to access the knowledge provider, like the YSAR or the CoLab?
Yes, yeah. So we have, so we don't ourselves, like ERNACT, we're not the vehicle that go out and deal directly with the SMEs. That's the LEOs, Enterprise Ireland, the hub managers, whatever. So we, through the hub managers and the technology providers, we help the SMEs to identify where they can get information and expertise on particular disruptive technologies to do with manufacturing. So there's, as I said, at the moment, there's 127 different types of disruptive technologies for manufacturing companies on the platform. There's probably more out there that we don't know about, but we'll be really keen to get them on this platform as well, so we can help them, those SMEs, to connect rather than having to most SMEs are one person or two person. They haven't got a time to have to Galway or Dublin or.
Well, I can tell you that very few of them are going to have these VR headsets.
Yeah.
Similarly, they just look at it through the.
Well, but they can look. You can look at. You don't actually need the headset in your organisation. You can look at it without the headset, but you can also come on to, like, say, your local hub or to wherever and view it as well if you want.
It's like Google Maps.
Yeah.
You are walking and you see around. So this
Yeah.
is the same, but inside the building. So you can see all the equipment that they have. So you don't need a VR headset.
You don't need
It's
the
just like
headset to do it.
it's called VR tool, but it's because you can walk through the place, but with the laptop or with a phone, you can see it like what's available. So it's open for everyone.
Yeah, and it's as if you're involved in yourself, as if you're just walking down the corridor. Machines and all. It's actually very, like, when we started this out, we thought we were going to have to go out to get someone in to do all this for us, but then we decided to develop skills ourselves on how to do it.
Okay.
So
I mean, it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's like an extension beyond making videos. Well, if I get in my car into O'Carroll and I drive to meet with YSAR, I just walk around the building and
yeah,
indeed the human discussion face to face. It's
yeah.
No,
You can
but
walk-
I don't quite. I'm just asking the question. I'm not quite
Yeah.
getting the raison d'être behind it.
This is more like if you have to travel far away and you
Yeah.
only want, maybe you don't know what the exact equipment they have.
Yeah.
So with these virtual tours, or like when you are walking around like these two, then you have eye tags, so information tags, so you can click in the tag, have more information about that equipment, and then you can contact maybe YSAR or another company. But you don't need to go up to their
Yeah, you don't need to go
place.
to that location.
Maybe you are connecting here YSAR, but if you
So I
have
would
to
be-
go
I
to
would
slide
be-
or-
I would be opening my browser and I would be
Yes.
watching.
Yeah.
What is effectively a video, but it's like the walk around.
Yes,
That's it.
yeah. Yeah.
And you can get like extra information.
You can get extra information then on all the different technologies that are in that facility. Yes,
Yeah, it's like the virtual estate agent. You can walk around the house.
Yes,
see what it
yes,
looks like.
yes.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
It lets you visualize and see before you go.
Yes.
The next
Yeah.
stage then will be an in-person if you.
Yes,
yes, yeah.
Yes.
It just allows
She's left to avoid like a long travel.
Yeah, unnecessary wasting trips and things.
No, sure, I'm not being stupid, but I just thought, do I need one of those gizmos? I don't have one. So there's some question.
No, you don't need that. You don't. Okay, so I don't know if Jose has any questions.
No, not from online. At this point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Say, do you have anything that you want to add there just before we finish up?
You're asking me, Carol?
Yes, have you anything that you want to add before we finish up?
Yeah, no, we don't. You can finish, and there are no more questions from the chat. So
Okay, brilliant. Okay. Thanks to everybody for joining online. We really appreciate it. We hope you found it useful. Okay, thank you.